Most of us have heard of spiritual bypassing, which is using spirituality to avoid doing the deep work in healing. But there's another kind of bypassing that seems to slip under the radar, and it hides in one of the places that we value the most.
It shows up inside our relationships. And on the surface and from the outside, it can look like love, like partnership, like we're so aligned.
But underneath, it could be a place where we hide from ourselves, where we disappear into the us because we're afraid to face the me.
And that's what we're diving into today. Relationship bypassing, using our connection with someone else to avoid our own growth, our own truth, our own healing.
If you've ever sat quiet to keep the peace, hold yourself. This is just our soul contract while your heart hurt, or used the comfort of your relationship to avoid your own next steps, then this conversation's for you.
By the end of this episode, you'll know how to spot relationship bypassing, how to gently call yourself forward with love, and how to turn your connection into a mirror for your growth instead of a mask that hides your pain.
Hey Heart Leader community, if you're liking this video, don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. Little known fact, when I was 21, I got married after knowing somebody for a little over a month. I don't talk about it often, but now, now I probably will. And I did this because of relationship bypassing. That's why I think it's really important that we start talking about such things, because it's very easy to find yourself wanting so greatly to throw yourself into a relationship, because it's so much easier to hide in a relationship than it is to face the healing, the deep healing that we need to do internally. And at that age, I had had a life that was full of a lot of pain. Not that any one person had thrust all this pain on me, but it was just life circumstances that kept happening one after the other, as life does. And so at this point in my life, I met this person whose pain kind of matched my pain level, right? And trauma bonding can be a real thing. We understood each other on a level that others just didn't seem to understand. And within probably about a month and a half, we got married. Now, it's a really good thing that we did, and there's a whole story behind that too that I'm not going to share here, but there's merit to the fact that if we're not mindful of relationship bypassing, then we can find ourselves doing really crazy things that we might not have done if we weren't using relationships to cover the healing that we need to do on our own individual level, right? Have you ever, now I know you haven't gotten married in like less than 2 months, but is there anything you've ever done that would be similar, or a story that you could share? Well, maybe we start by defining what is relationship bypassing. Right? We all know what spiritual bypassing is, or at least the majority of us might know what spiritual bypassing is, or maybe we just start there. What is spiritual bypassing? What is cognitive bypassing? We talked about it on a previous podcast and we gave links, but if you haven't had an opportunity to explore that, maybe we just start by saying, what is bypassing and how are we doing it on all of these levels?
I love that. Yeah. Well, first, thanks for opening up and being vulnerable and sharing something that fits what we're talking about, but also has its own blessings. And that's important to
Always.
differentiate. And, all of us have done something, where we maybe was like, wow, why did I do that? But then, at the same level, there's also probably equal or even more amounts of blessings out of it. Right. And so this isn't an opportunity to uh, condemn our own selves for our own actions. Right. That's not what we're talking about here. But what we are talking about is awareness, right? To help us, because we can't change what we've done in the past, but we can be more effective with how we move forward based on the awareness that we have. And so bypassing is a really good awareness generator, if we will, to help us expand our awareness to make choices that are more aligned with who we are and what we desire to experience in this life. And so if we want to focus on bypassing, like you're saying, there's cognitive bypassing, there's spiritual bypassing, there's relationship bypassing. There's probably others, but I think maybe if you're willing, since you are the amazing, science nerd who's incredible with this kind of stuff and can do a much better job than me defining it, if you're
I
willing,
love that.
I would love for you to quickly kind of define and just throw a quick overview of cognitive, then spiritual, and then relationship.
Sure. And we'll throw psychological in there as well.
Perfect.
So we'll start with psychological bypassing, right? When you have psychological bypassing, you really dive into the use of psychology and psychoanalysis, and you utilize these to bypass the actual healing. You're psychoanalyzing everything, and then you get into analysis paralysis, and you don't actually get to the root of the healing that needs to be done, right? So it's very easy to get into those loops and that analysis and then not really focus on what needs to be healed. You're deferring the healing. Then there's cognitive bypassing, where you're using your intellect, your intelligence. And in that podcast, that's another area that I admitted I used my intellect a lot. To this day, I catch myself sometimes utilizing intellect as a way to defer my healing. In spiritual bypassing, we use our spirituality. We outsource it to a religion or something grander than self, instead of understanding that healing still has to happen on the inside. Yes, there might be a source that can assist in that, just like I could go to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a doctor, you name it, they can assist. But still, I'm the one that has to do the work, just like going to the gym and hiring a personal trainer. I can't anticipate that the personal trainer working out is going to cause me to lose weight, right? I have to work out with the personal trainer as much as the personal trainer is working out and showing me what to do. It's just not going to happen that way. So when we do the same thing in relationships, relationship bypassing is when you find yourself in a relationship and you hide yourself in that relationship. And when the relationship looks okay, you believe you're okay. And you use the relationship to hide yourself and not look at what you need to be healed, right? So I know that I, as an individual, have things that I need to heal, but I'm so busy pacifying the relationship that I don't have time to look at myself, right? And it's easy to do that. And the reason I started with I know that what this is because I've done it. It was so much easier for me to throw myself into a relationship, especially a marriage. And then very soon after, we had my son, Josh. So I was in the throes of making sure the relationship was okay. Well, ultimately, that relationship did not work out. And it wasn't anyone's fault, except for the fact that neither one of us took time to heal ourselves. We both have now. But at that time, we didn't, because we were so focused on let's give the guise of having a solid relationship and a great family, that we didn't take the time to actually focus on ourselves and heal ourselves so that two whole people could come together and make a strong, solid, whole relationship. We were relationship bypassing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Then the question is, how do we become aware of relationship bypassing? What are signs of relationship bypassing? What does it look like in life? How do we know if we're doing it? Because it's become so normalized that sometimes we don't even know we're doing. I certainly didn't know that that's what I was doing. I know now, but I did not know at the time. It just felt really good to have somebody who understood my pain, right? And then to feel understood and to not have to focus on myself. That was also so very nice. I could support his pain. Then I didn't have to focus on my pain. And he definitely it felt nice to him to have somebody who was willing to help him focus on what was going on in his life. And so it just creates a spiral. So how do you recognize? And I do want to say, like, this individual is an amazing person. And so when you're young, you do things and relationships don't work out. So I just want to clarify. But we just have to look out for signs, right, of what our behavior is, because our behavior is the only behavior we can direct.
Absolutely. And I think it's important through this process, we'll definitely highlight some of those in this conversation. But I do want to also, one of the things you first asked me is, have I had that experience? And
Yes.
so I want to share a side of relationship bypassing that's probably overlooked and not even viewed necessarily. It's like relationship bypassing adjacent, but I think it is considered relationship bypassing. And
Like
so
a
I'm going to share
sidecar.
like a sidecar. Exactly. And, obviously prior to you, and it's not obvious to everyone who's listening, but to you,
I know. To me.
yeah, I was going to go down one and I switched, but anyways, prior to you, I had never had a relationship that lasted much more than like a month or 2 months at the most. Most of them were weeks. And so it would never really even the months, it was because I was either traveling or gone or, so if you actually put it in a standpoint, it was still weeks, even though it might've been 2 months. It was like, whether it was in college or after college or something like that, it was like I was traveling. So I really wasn't even physically there. So it wasn't really, yeah, it still was a short
We're
amount
in
of time.
town. It would have only been.
Yeah, exactly. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because, I never like dove into a relationship and hid in that way, like hid my pain into the relationship. But I want to talk about another thing, especially because for men, and I think this is something that is very prevalent, remains prevalent. Not in my life anymore, which I'm grateful for. But I had a lot of healing, and that needed to be done that wasn't. And I'd always heard that, you always hear like, hey, your relationship is the person is your better half, or your soulmate, the one who completes you, right? And so if I didn't feel that in the first week or two, I was just like, I don't want to waste their time, I don't want to waste mine, let me just see about another person, and so on and so on and so on. And I was doing it from a place of, I wanted to respect the other person. If I didn't see it going forward, why would I? Like, I honored and respect them, and I wanted to. The way I did it was probably not honoring and respectful. I know better now. I was young. I thought I was doing something, and you learn, and you wish you could go back and make changes. But the problem is that I was expecting, which is completely unfair. I was expecting someone else to heal me. And when that person didn't fulfill that role within, a week or two or three, then it was just like, okay, goodbye. And then I'd move on. And then I still had the healing that needed to be done, but I was deferring it to the next person. So I wasn't hiding in a relationship. I was hiding in dating. And I was hiding in the fact that I was expecting someone else to heal me instead of taking the time to actually heal myself. And so it is a type of relationship bypassing, especially when you're told, as a man who's, oh, if you're dating a lot of people, you're a wanted commodity. This makes you look good, right?
Yes.
And so that was part of the problem. Is like the more I did that, the more it fueled my ego, and it made me want to look within myself way less and less. The more that I did that, right? And then it just it fueled that problem, and it fueled that I continued to distract myself with the next person and the next person and the next person. And so there are multiple ways that we can distract ourselves, whether it's in a relationship or moving from relationship to relationship. There are multiple, just like there are multiple ways to do cognitive bypassing, psychological bypassing, and spiritual bypassing. There are multiple ways to do relationship bypassing.
Hi, my name is Amber Mikesell. I am the author of this best-selling book, Silence Your Inner Critic, and I am so happy to announce that we have won 2 silver awards from the Book Fest. You can get your copy of this amazing best-selling award-winning book delivered right to your door by clicking the link below in the show notes. All you have to do is pay shipping, and you'll get not only the book, but $200 worth of free gifts, all delivered directly to you. Exactly. And that's actually one of the key red flags is using a relationship, no matter how long or short, that you're using it as an escape to doing your own inner reflection or inner work in any way. And so, in both examples, yours and mine, we were both using it as a way to avoid going inward and going, okay, what's happening in here that's fueling my desire to use this relationship as a stopgap and not really as an enriching learning experience that expands who I am, not escapes who I am.
And I can say for probably a vast majority of people, it's like, I didn't have the awareness that that's what I was doing. You didn't have the awareness that you were doing. Like, it's one thing if you do and you're still making the choice, okay. And I'm not here to judge or condemn or anything like that, but that might be a really good opportunity to revisit oneself. But like for me, when I realized it, it hit me on the head like a ton of bricks. And I realized, here I am putting how I was unintentionally treating all these individuals, how I was putting an unfair expectation on them that was not communicated. And I didn't even communicate it to myself. And so how would they know, And so, and I didn't have the maturity level at that point in my life to know that I was even bypassing or that I was even actually hurt in the first place.
Well, and partially, we really don't have a term for relationship bypassing. Relationship bypassing, when you go out on the internet, you're not going to really find anything. This is somewhat new territory. And so we need to start defining it and understanding that it's a thing in the first place, which is why we're talking about it. And start identifying the red flags so that we didn't know when we were young, but we can start to inform our young people to say, hey, look for these red flags. Start to ask yourself, is this happening? Am I starting to use a relationship as an avoidance tactic to my own healing so that I'm not putting that onto somebody else? And I'm not walking into a relationship feeling like they're the missing part of me. Because if I walk in and I'm asking them to be my healing, then that's an unrealistic expectation. They may not be fully healed within themselves. So if I'm asking them to be my healing, which again, I'll go back to my example, neither one of us were in a healthy place. So if two people are not in a healthy place, where's that going to lead to over time? Right? Neither one of us could help one another because neither one of us were in a very healthy position. So ultimately, it was going to implode no matter what we did.
As the reason why it's such an unfair expectation is because the other individual's not prepared. Like they don't, if you don't even know how to communicate what's within you, and if they're not even my guess is most relationships, the other person is not a licensed professional that really supports in this specific way. So that's there, we're asking them to take on a role that they're completely unprepared for
and didn't sign up
and didn't sign up for. Exactly.
Right.
And so that's, again, a very, very unfair expectation.
Exactly. Now, just to add clarity to my comment, even if two people come together and are not in a healthy place, if they both commit to getting to a healthy place, there's always hope, right?
Sure, especially if they explore individuals who are can help them, like maybe they are a licensed professional and they can support them through the process.
Right.
Or even if one or both individuals are licensed professionals, they may desire someone outside of the relationship to support them in that because they may have blind spots that they're unaware of and unable to see due to the closeness, right?
We all need help, no matter what.
Absolutely.
But continuing on with the red flags, knowing that you are avoiding your own growth in service of a relationship is a key one. But when we talk about spiritual bypassing, there are also things in certain types of spirituality that can lend to relationship bypassing. And we have heard it a lot. Things like they're my soulmate, they're my twin flame, which we have no issue with as a concept. But when you apply that to taking on avoiding your own growth, like I'm sacrificing myself and my own personal growth because I'm in a twin flame or soul contract, soulmate agreement. So now I no longer matter. You have to step back and go, are you doing that to bypass your own growth? It is as though you just got a free pass because your growth is now put on hold to be in service of the we. And would an actual twin flame or soul contract actually do that? Because each of us in a contractual agreement are going to have our own individual growth, even through a twin flame or soul contract, soulmate kind of agreement. So we have to really analyze and understand, what does that mean? What are your feels? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people out there who may not use soul contract or twin flame, but I think most people have heard of soulmates, right? Or that term. And so, like, hey, this is my soulmate, and then they're willing to either be treated poorly, or be in a bad relationship, or be someone who treats the other person poorly. So any one of those, or some combination of all of them, because of this illusion per se, of like, again, it's a deflection, and the illusion is not the right word. It's a deflection into putting someone or the relationship into a category to make everything okay of what's being done, even if that includes self-deprecation, or a lack of self-worth, or a diminishing of self-worth for like a real intense way to put it. And that's true. Like there's been plenty of times where we've seen individuals, and whether it's clients or friends and family who are in relationships, they know they're not happy, and they're either, whatever situation is going on, And it's like, look, I'm just going to stick with it because this is my soulmate. It's like, okay, if loyalty is that important to you, that's an amazing, amazing characteristic. And I'm
Yes.
not going to downplay that in any way, shape, or form. But if you're unhappy, or you're sacrificing yourself, or you're lifting the other person, putting yourself down, or vice versa, or there's constant fighting, the idea of a soulmate relationship, or soul contract, or twin flame, however you want to place it, is one of harmony, and that is not harmony. And so what we end up doing is we take these terms and we tend to make things like whatever is happening is okay, and we end up losing ourselves because of it. And that can actually happen on both sides of a relationship too. Like, it's not just one, it doesn't have to be one-sided. It can be where two people enter it and expect it to be one thing, and it ends up being something else, and they stick with it because they think it's a soul mate, or whatever term they want to place on it, and they're both not treating each other well, and then they're actually pulling the worst out of each other instead of the best out of each other. And so that's what, to me, is definitely a red flag into spirit, into well, definitely relationship bypassing, but also spiritual bypassing as well. Because a lot of these terms are tied into, I'm in it because of my faith, or I'm in it because of the religion, I'm in it because of, X, Y, and Z, soulmate, so, which might be new age, right? So there's all these different terms that we place on it, instead of going within. We keep placing it outside of ourselves and saying this is okay, when the reality is that this inside is not okay.
And I would offer, if that's happening, we're in no way saying don't stay in the relationship. The real true question to get out of bypassing is to then take what is happening and pull it inward and go, what am I learning from this? Why am I willing to stay? If I feel that I'm in a soulmate, soul contract, twin flame, or that my faith tells me that I believe in my faith so strongly that I'm willing to stay in this, why am I willing to stay in this? What am I learning? How can I utilize this for the betterment of me and my soul? Is it that I'm staying because loyalty is important to me as one of my core values? Am I staying because I'm learning unconditional love no matter what? But what is it that I'm getting? And not just because I'm being told externally, this is what I do. This is what's coming from me internally, and my inner framework and my inner realm is showing me this is my why. And then I can navigate from my inner world into the outer to know that this is where indeed I am meant to be. And the twin flame journey isn't what's dictating it to me. The soul contract isn't what's dictating it to me. None of the other labels that are being placed on it. It's that my soul is telling me what my true north is, so that then I can follow that true north.
I think it's important to really talk through this, because when we are internal, we may feel like we're diving internally, but we're still using the external, and it's hard. Because when we might say, well, I'm fighting for this relationship, and it's like a badge of honor. And so we may think that we are moving internally. And so it's really important to keep asking why, to keep diving further in, because just, one internal conversation is just not enough. And even one or two, like keeping it consistent, keep asking what's going, why these things are happening and why we're choosing this. And are we doing this as a badge of honor to show that, we fight, and, this is, gosh, what are some of the words that we hear constantly?
In flames, there are runners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one.
That's one, I know. And again, it's not to cast any judgment. There are just terms that have become acceptable. and questioning, why is that acceptable? And if it's acceptable, then if there's a runner and a chaser, then is that truly a cycle that sounds like unconditional love in a relationship? Now, we're not telling anybody what journey to hold, but if we're talking about relationship bypassing and we're talking about using something to avoid your own work, then a runner and a chaser as terms in a type of a connection would fit an approach where it would be not looking at self as much if somebody is running and somebody is chasing, right? So that's the only question that arises. Again, we're not standing in judgment. We're not standing in anything other than the question.
Yeah. Well, there's a multitude of ways that this, I mean, we could spend hours and hours and hours over examples of how this could unfold. And so that's why it's important for us to at least touch on all these things, just to, even if it's to spark awareness around it, right? Even like if it's like, oh, well, how many times in movies, and we talked about this in a previous podcast, where it's like, oh, I like to fix people.
I like
you know,
fixers.
I like fixers, right?
I'm
And
the
it's like,
fixer-upper.
and it's, again, that's another deferring or avoiding of the own, because they're not willing to take the time to, no one needs fixing. We have our own opportunities to grow, right?
I was the one who wanted a fixer, right?
Yeah.
I know, I was there.
Yeah. So there's just so many, and that's what we're bringing forward, these different terms to identify. And like you said, keep asking the question, because there are so many different red flags. And sure, maybe we place something in our path to experience. And if you choose it, okay, well, great. At least now you have the awareness and you're choosing it with intention versus not intention. If you're just choosing it and you're cycling and you're spiraling, well, you're not helping yourself. You're not helping the other person or people or the people in your lives. We forget that we have a ripple effect. And so just because we're in a relationship with one person, and that relationship, in many ways is only between those two, or, maybe there's polyamory. There's, again, there's so many different ways.
Yeah.
Relationship. I'm going to give one example just for the purpose of this. So in two people, but we forget that, our friends and our family, what we choose, there is a ripple effect. And so we may think that it's only within ourselves, but when we take actions and we do that from a place of unawareness, we could be hurting other people around us that we don't even realize that we're doing. And so if you're hearing this for the first time, you're recognizing there are red flags, and you still choose to move forward for your own personal growth and expansion, then you can have the awareness of, okay, well, am I choosing this for me so that I can grow? And if so, then how can I make sure that there isn't fallout from anyone else? And that's so important. That's responsibility. That's true growth, right? Now you're not just diving into uh you're shifting out of relationship bypassing into relationship growth. You're shifting out of spiritual bypassing into true spiritual growth. And that's next level. And that can actually help you heal a relationship that might actually be hurting. Hey, I'm Austin Yule, co-host of the Heart Leader podcast and one of the founders of Suivera, the organization that powers the Heart Leader podcast. And I'm so excited to share today that not only did we get nominated for an Anthem Award this year, but we actually won bronze in diversity, equity, inclusion for best use of AI tech. We're so excited. This is such a unique project, and this is all focused on heart-centered technology. If this interests you and you'd love to learn more, click the link below, and we'd love to see you get involved, whether it's being part of the community or helping us shape this incredible project.
And if you hear this and you think that we're just full of shit, that's okay too,
Totally.
But the whole point is to have a moment of, hey, there is something else out there. And maybe it's worth exploring. And getting triggered, or if there's a trigger, then maybe there's a seed of truth for you in this, and feel into that trigger, right? If this doesn't faze you at all, that's okay too. Now, there are a couple more red flags to really dive into. And one of them is hearing that we're too aligned to disagree. I've I've had some individuals in my life that I've heard this from. Like, we're just so happy we're too aligned to disagree. You and I are probably one of the happiest couples I know. We disagree. We don't argue. I think we've had one fight in 11 years, but we disagree all the time.
No, not all the time, but it's not like we're just constantly in disagreement, just for
No.
clarity. But
Yes.
we have bouts of disagreement. Yes.
At least, I would say at least once every couple of weeks, we have some kind of disagreement,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But there's a key difference between disagreeing and arguing. And if we say we're too aligned to disagree, then how much are we self-sacrificing for the harmony of the relationship? And how much animosity is that creating within ourselves so that we can appease the relationship to keep up the appearance of not disagreeing?
The illusion of harmony when the reality is emotional suppression. And how does that end up? Usually not great.
So face-saving cultures can create this red flag. It's really hard when you come from a culture where it's like, do not go out and let your problems be seen by others. Create a really positive presence. That's just it. People see the positive and nothing else. So then you learn that pattern. And because you desire to put on that positive presence, you suppress anything that is not that positive presence. And you feel as though it should always be an agreeable relationship. All relationships should be agreeable relationships. And then you are not willing to disagree because then the relationship is bad, it's wrong, and it will go away. You'll be abandoned. So it is really, really important to understand if you've ever seen this red flag in a relationship you're in, even if it's just a friendship, creating a safe space where it's okay to disagree. You don't have to fight, but make it okay to not agree on everything, that there's safety in that, so that both of you can have your own perspectives, your own points of view, and resentment doesn't start to build up. Even if you've been in a relationship for a while, it's okay to start that now, right? Whether that relationship is a connected partnership or it's a friendship, everybody needs space to disagree. Do you?
Yeah, and it can show up in so many. That one particularly can show up in very religious focused cultures, patriarchal style cultures, status focused cultures. So there's so many different ways that one can show up, and it kind of flows into another one, which is silencing truth, right? And that's how many times we experienced, whether it's ourselves or friends, where their voice is just silenced, and it's very one sided. It's very this is one way is the way, and so.
It's fine if you're a Mandalorian.
Yeah, this is the way.
Not okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this type of this red flag is really seen probably all over the world in many different ways.
Well, you want to keep the peace, right? And if you stay silent, it's better to stay silent than it is to create waves. But the only way anything ever changes is if you're willing to create waves. So create a few waves. If nobody wants to ride them with you, it's okay. But at least you put them out there. You'll never know if you don't share your voice, even in a relationship. Maybe whomever is your partner really, really has desired to hear that from you for a long time. But you'll never know if you don't voice it, right?
Yeah. And if it's not received well, it might be worth looking into understanding why. If the other person doesn't value your voice, or if you don't value your own voice, or both, maybe that's an opportunity to keep asking that question of why. Is this structure of this relationship, is that actually beneficial? And is there a way to find harmony by sharing voice and creating equality through that, or not?
Well, the last red flag I want to share, and it circles back to a lot of what we were talking about at the beginning of this, is the disappearing into the us because you're afraid of the me, right? It is so much easier, no matter the state of your relationship, to really disappear and hide in the relationship than it is to grab your bootstraps and really pull yourself up and look at what you need to look at. And that was the flow that I went through when my ex-husband and I reached a point and we both really kind of realized that we're not in a healthy place, and healing together is likely not our best foot forward. We are still friends to this day. I honor and respect the growth and the healing that he has done through his life. It is amazing to be in witness of. But I also needed to do a lot of healing. And that was what was going to be best for our son. So to take that time and really understand, I need to heal. I need to kind of buckle down. I was physically unwell. I was mentally going through the ringer because I was physically unwell. I was spiritually unwell. So to take that journey, I needed my own time and space. And by being willing to look at the me, I was able to navigate and understand, and at the time, what I needed to do that. If I had kept hiding in the relationship, I would have continued to not look at the me. And I don't know that I would have been here today. It can sometimes be that strong. So we have to ask ourselves, how deep are we going into hiding? Is it so much so that we're avoiding things that could be detrimental to our own health?
Yeah, I mean, codependency is a big aspect of this. That outsourcing our pain to the other person is an easy thing to do in a relationship because it can feel like the person is providing a space of safety. And so that's the clarity that we need to take the time to understand within our relationships. Is the other person genuinely supporting me as I move through my own whatever healing that I need to go through, and it's helping me grow? Or am I just placing all of it on the other person so that I don't have to feel it and they can feel it for me, basically, like what you're talking about in the beginning of this podcast? And I don't know if our society takes a lot of time to explore that question and really seek to understand that side of it, because whether it's previous trauma or trauma to come, we don't know. And so the more that we can set ourselves up, because you might be in a really great, healthy relationship right now, but who's to know if you're still together, 20 years from now? Well, then how are you going to deal with it? What's going to happen? How is it going to unfold? Is it going to tear you apart, or is it going to make you stronger? Right. And so these kind of questions to help us understand how to really make a strong, impactful relationship that's beneficial for both individuals to be able to show up at the greatest version, the grandest vision of who they are by bringing the best out of each other. That's true support. That is not outsourcing healing.
The question comes down to why. Why do we tend to relationship bypass? It's very easy to do, very difficult to recognize. But if we had a foundation of understanding why we do it, it might be a little easier to recognize when it's happening. Right? So, why do we do it? And I would offer that, at least for me, it started out with good intentions, right? We desire to be there for the other person. As I mentioned, I wanted to be a fixer, right? Somebody was hurting. And this happened a lot in a lot of relationships I was in when I was younger. I saw someone who was in pain, and it started innocent, likely as friends. And then I felt like I could do something to support them. And next thing I know, it took off from there. But it couldn't be that way long term, right? It wasn't as though I could fix anybody. They had to fix themselves, and it's not even fixing, right? But the why had nothing to do with them in the first place. It had everything to do with me. So it starts out with good intentions.
We are our own most common denominator in all our relationships, right? And so looking at it from that perspective, not that it's even a place of blame or fault, but just a reality. We can't make changes to something that we don't know exists. And so when we can bring awareness to it, not from a place of, even like we were saying, not condemning ourselves or condoning it in any way either, but just honestly seeing it and then saying, this is either helpful or not helpful. And if it's not helpful, then what can I do to adjust? And am I making these choices because I don't want to rock the boat, or I finally feel safe, so I don't want to lose this, or I finally have the idea of who I think is the best person for me, and I don't want to lose it because I'm afraid of being, I'm afraid of being abandoned, right? What are these things that are causing? We hear these phrases and we hear these terms, and we see them all the time in movies, and we see them all the time in books, and in our friends and lives, and oftentimes we just kind of glaze over it because there's something that we are fearing. And that in and of itself is a great place to start when we're asking the question, why?
I completely agree, because so often we want to hide behind something and use it as a shield. As we were talking about, it could be the spiritual language that we're using as a shield, or really and truly the relationship itself we're using as a shield to feel safe. And so the why is just that sense of safety. Now I finally feel safe, because when it's me, I haven't done the healing yet. So I don't feel safe. And because I don't feel safe, this shield giving me that false sense of safety, I'll do anything to protect, even if it means silencing my voice. Right? And if I'm not in a relationship, then I'll do whatever I need to get into a relationship so that I once again have that shield. Right? And what I was doing with the needing to have a project, it was me attempting to mirror back to myself that I needed to heal, that I needed to be my own project, because mirroring is such a strong thing that we do as people, right? If we see something in someone else, it's usually a sign that that's a gaping area for us to take a look at. But I wasn't yet seeing that. And so I kept doing it again and again and again and again. And I wanted that to be my shield, but instead it should have been a tool for me. And until I recognized it as such, it just kept coming at me. Right. And so I feel like knowing the why we do it can then transition into how can we use the why as a tool, as an actual tool, and use that mirror as a reflection exercise.
Yeah. I mean, it's important for us to recognize that, love is not a substitute for inner progress. Love is what walks beside us as we do our own healing. And it walks with us. It guides us. It connects us. It moves us. It manifests what we desire, but it isn't something that we place outside of ourselves. It's something that we actually first embody, and we can embody that within ourselves, and we have a greater capacity to express that to others. And I feel like this reflection method is a really, really great way to help people kind of jumpstart on that journey.
Are you willing to walk us through it?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
So the reflection method is a phenomenal 4-step process that is easy to implement. It's hard in the fact that we have our own habits and we have our own these things that we're flowing through. We may not be aware of them. And so that's the difficulty. The difficulty is identifying the areas that we actually are causing us more pain or enhancing our pain or snowballing the pain. And so when we feel like either our voice is being suppressed or we're outsourcing our healing or we're feeling codependent, or we start to make an acknowledgement of an area where there is a red flag that's coming forward, then implementing this method is a really, really great way to start. And so step one starts with pausing. If we feel like something is occurring, that red flag is happening, and we're either, pause and don't send that text, or pause and instead of walking out of the room, frustrated or about to yell or something like that, breathe. Take a moment, reset and breathe. Enjoy that pause. Recognize its purpose and intention, because oftentimes we're in a spiral because a spiral is a snowballing effect of reactions versus true responses. When we have the ability to respond, then we can choose something different. Where if we react, then we get stuck in that cycle.
It's amazing how often pausing is the best first step. Because if you're going to do something to keep the peace too, if you pause, then maybe you get a moment to just collect yourself and go, is keeping the peace my best step, or should I express how I feel in this moment? So either side of the coin that you're on there, if you just take a moment and you're feeling something and you pause, you get that gap to just go, how do I actually desire to respond? So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's incredibly powerful.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's no wonder that the very thing that keeps us alive is far more important, our breath, than we realize, right?
Pause and breathe. Yeah. And it's used by military. It's used by people who are in the medical field during emergencies. Pausing is so prevalent in emergency situations.
And so number two, what happens is when we pause, we give ourselves that space to begin to either understand, ask a question. And that question is, what is underneath this feeling or reaction, right? It's helping identify the what is the surface level feeling and what is the core feeling. For example, if I feel angry, right? Well, why? Is it because I'm not feeling seen? Is it because I'm not feeling heard? Is it because I'm not feeling understood? What is going on that is causing this inside of me, that I'm either it's keeping me in this loop that's no longer serving me, and hasn't been serving me for a long time, and it's and I keep getting stuck in it because I'm not allowing myself that space to ask the question, to identify what's going on, decipher between how I feel and what I think I might feel, and really get in, stop being on the surface level, get into the core of it, and really understand how I can move from it.
And maybe what you're not expressing.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. You feel it, but you're not expressing it. And just expressing it may be a pressure valve.
Yeah. And that beautifully aligns to number 3. What do I need that I've been afraid to express? Is it more space? Do I need more space? Do I need uh, more time? Do I need to be heard? And do I need to be respected? Do I need to be seen? Do I, all these what am I afraid to fully express, and what do I need from that? Whether it's from the other person or even myself.
I love that you said, or even myself, because so many times we think that, oh, it's the other person. The other person isn't respecting me. But have you created boundaries and shared that with the other person? If you don't know what you need and you haven't created what you need as a set of boundaries, then how are they going to know what you need? You have to create that so that they know, so that you can share it with them and they can honor what you need. And that's where we've got a podcast all around personal boundaries, right? So that's so key. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've got a ton of stuff.
Of course, we can put it in the notes in case anyone is like, hey, I really need help in that area.
It was a huge factor for our happiness and connection. So, yeah. All right. So take us home. Well, what's number 4?
And the final one is asking what's mine to own and what's asking to be healed. And the first one is really important because when we either feel triggered, or we feel there's a lot of emotion, or we're expressing that emotion, it's really easy to start blaming others instead of looking inward, right? Again, that's another form of outsourcing. And so it's important to take responsibility, not from a blame, but from I am responsible, and this is how I'm choosing to, I'm able to respond. It's like I'm able to respond in a way that is actually beneficial to me versus not beneficial to me. And so what's mine to own is a really great question, because this could be, my tone. How am I actually talking? Are my words matching my intention? This is one I struggle with a lot. Is because I feel like I'm saying one thing, but it may be coming off as another. And it never would have dawned on me that it would come off that way, because that's how it makes sense to me. And so that's a really good one to own. My assumptions, right? That's a really great one to own. Is how much are we making our own assumptions and placing it on the others around us, including the person that we're in a relationship with, and then finally, is there any past baggage that we're either placing on someone or projecting on the other person, that they've may have never even shown signs of that. And so that's so important to kind of look at first and see how we're actually maybe unintentionally creating the situation itself, instead of blaming it on the other person. In parallel, it is good to ask, what needs to be healed? Are we stuck in this area of, I don't deserve to have my voice heard? I'm not good enough. They're going to leave me. You name it, you can put X, Y, and Z. I'm sure there's a lot of those out there. I know I've felt that before. I'm sure everyone has, where those insecurities really creep up. And it's the inner critic really that comes in and overtakes us. And we start saying all these negative things about ourselves to give some reason why the other person will do X, Y, and Z. And so that's a really tough one. That is a great place to understand a core understanding, right? And that's why we have 1 through 4 in that way, where we're pausing and then we're seeking to understand the surface level versus the core, and then we're diving deeper, and then we really get to the why behind it, and through personal responsibility and a deeper understanding. And so that movement into, from those four those these 4 steps can really take us out of the spiral and into moving forward.
What it really does is you get this sense of powerfulness where when we use relationship bypassing, we're hiding. When you have steps and you feel empowered, there's no reason to hide anymore. You've got a strategy. You can implement that strategy whenever, and it makes you feel powerful. That will do so much for your healing pattern. And that was one of the key things that I needed in the beginning. If I knew that I had a go to approach, then I didn't have to just sort through a whole bunch of tools. I had a tool that when everything seemed to be going sideways and all I wanted to do was run back and hide behind even though it was painful, it was the pain I knew and it was comfortable. Right. And sometimes you'll hear people say it. It's better to have the pain that I know than the pain that I don't know. And until you're in that position, you might not understand what that means. But it is very scary to step out of something and into the unknown in the beginning until you get used to it. Then it becomes exciting. But in the beginning, the pain that you know seems so much more comforting than the unknown, because that could be a lot more painful. But if I had a few tools in my arsenal to help me, then it wasn't the unknown anymore. It was the known that helped me go even further into the unknown and gather a few more that felt like, once those tools felt like second nature or first nature, really, then I could go a little further and then a little further. So to me, when you find these superpowers, I'll call them, because that's what they started to feel like, then I could get to know more and more about how powerful I actually was. And the healing became easier and easier and easier. And I found that the things that I needed to heal were actually the very things that gave me the superpowers that dwell deeper inside of me. Every experience that was painful and created the need for healing were the things that unlocked the superpowers that I held. And by me bypassing and not going into those chambers within myself, I was keeping my superpowers dormant and making myself small. So I would ask every person who's made it this far in our podcast to go into those chambers within themselves, because that's where their superpowers are.
And one of the best things to know when navigating the unknown is that real love doesn't punish. It may stretch, but it definitely doesn't abandon. And so if you do take the time to go within like this and you apply these, and it creates a ripple, a big ripple in the relationship, then it might be worth really asking, is this real love? Because if it's met with opposition versus met with understanding, then that can help us move from unknown to known. So today we explored relationship bypassing, how easy it is to use connection as a hiding place, and how powerful it is when we let love become a mirror instead.
We talked about red flags, such as using the relationship to avoid your own work, clinging to spiritual language to justify the pain, silencing your truth to keep the peace, and disappearing into the us to avoid the me.
Also, we walk through the reflection method, pausing when you recognize a red flag, asking what you truly need, and owning what's yours to heal.
And if you take nothing else from this episode, let it be this: real love never asks you to stay small.
And if what you learned in this episode really resonated with you, it would mean the world to us if you'd like, subscribe, and share it with someone that you feel might need a reminder too.
And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Was there a moment in this episode where you realized, oh, I might be relationship bypassing?
And remember, every time you choose to honestly meet yourself in your relationship, you're not just protecting your heart, you're expanding it.